Alright, this is the third part of the video tutorial of the. So in the previous we just wired up our begin request event handler inside the init method, and we have just like we associated our session into the current session context when the request when our we started the session. So when we are done with our session, so next thing we have to do, we basically need to discard that object. To do that, all we have to do basically unbind our session, right? Session, and we're going to say NHibernate factory. Then we basically we're going to say current session context. Current session context, we will do unbind, and we're going to pass our NHibernate session factory here to this guy. That would give us the session associated with our factory, and once we obtain that, we're just going to call this session.dispose method. That is how we got to do in our global SX file. Yeah, of course, oh well, so even, of course at this point, I just declare this field, static field right here, but I haven't initialized it. I haven't set it, right? So at this point, that guy is null. Nothing gonna happen. So somehow I should be able to, initialize that object. So NHibernate session factory. Now let's see, how are we gonna do it? To do that, let's go ahead and write little NHibernate helper here. This is, remember earlier I created this folder called NHibernate helpers. In here I'm going to go ahead and write a class, new item, a class. Let's name this guy as NHibernate helper, Hibernate session helper. That's what it is, right? Okay, just make this guy static, which is okay. And in here, I would like to have a method, public static method, that return I session factory, and I'm going to name this as get NHibernate session factory. Okay. Of course, we gotta do name resolution here, including the NHibernate assembly, and then of course, in the NHibernate, it needs to know like what kind of database it is dealing with, what kinds of driver it's using, the connection string, all those kind of information. So I need to basically include all those information in here. To be able to do that, I'm gonna include NHibernate. One more assembly from NHibernate .cfg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say var. There is a object called class called configuration inside that. So this is an NHibernate configuration object. I'm going to go ahead and create an instance of this guy. And there is a very nice extension method. Configuration dot, that's the extension method called database integration. So basically, if you look at the signature of that method, it takes the action of NHibernate locasius blah blah integration configuration properties, right? So basically, this action it's a delegate that doesn't return anything. It's a void. So basically, what we can do, we can say that we can basically use the lambda expression here. Let's say LIDCP. Well, let's just say config. I was just trying to use that whole name. Okay, so basically in here, in this code block, we need to state our parameter. We need to tell NHibernate what kind of database we're using, all this kind of thing, okay? That's where we do our basic. So we're going to say something like config dot let's add a dialog here, and the dialog we'd like to use is of course MSSQ, say a driver namespace. So here is a dialog. Okay, what you expect is a NHibernate dialog. So dialog we would like to use is MSSQL. There's all dialog for all different kind of databases, so we can use these for the SQL Server. That is what we can use. That our dialog setting is done, and then we can do the same way for our SQL client driver. So driver it will be using would be NHibernate driver, the SQL 2008 client driver. That is that. And then there is a lot of properties you can set, but I'm just going to say the properties that is actually needed. And the other thing we need is, like, let's say connection string name right here. I don't have connection string name yet, but I'll tell you where to get that connection string from, and I will say that later. And then of course then I have to say a config dot connection string provider. That we need to tell the connection provider to this one. The connection provider is going to be, you know, NHibernate the connection driver connection provider. Okay. Once those settings are done, and we come out from right here, basically all we did right now is we basically populated this IDB integration configuration object properties. So now we have to somehow, you know, hold this configuration with the current session context. So we're going to say configuration dot current session context, and this to this guy we're going to provide us context called web session context. Yeah, in Hibernate context. That is residing in Hibernate context, so that is that. So we are almost done from our configuration. So once that is done, of course, you know, like we have to do something like configuration dot session factory. To the session factory, okay, we need to tell where our POCO classes are residing. You know what I mean. So we're gonna say add assembly. The assembly we'd like to add gonna come from, we have a, let's use a type of operator, and then we have a feature class here. Feature, let's do a name resolution inside that namespace, and then it has assembly, right? So basically we're saying to NHibernate, hey, you need to add the assembly. This is where my object, my POCO classes will be residing. That's what we have to do. And once that is done, there's a lot of other methods if you want to see, you know, all the objects that are integrated. No, but once that is done, all we have to do is return configuration dot build the session factory. Once it builds it, it's gonna return the type of sorry, we're gonna say build. This is not what I mean to. Configuration dot build session factory. This guy returns iSession factory, which that's what my method returns. So I'm going to go ahead and return that. So if everything is good, you know, then I should have my configuration done correctly. But however, one more thing I have to do here is I have to put my connection string information. Okay, let me find out that information. So go into the web config file here, By default,